You are looking at another amazing coin coming from the Royal Australian Mint, highlighting the Sumatran Elephant. Everything you need to know about this coin to understand if it's right for you and your collection today on the Culture of Currency. Welcome back to the home of the stories hidden in the silver and the culture housed in coins. Today we revisit a series worth a hard look for any collector of silver coins as we look at the third installment of the Royal Australian Zoo series, this one highlighting the Sumatran Elephant. This is a twofold look as we will understand the importance zoos play in our society, as well as the real focus, which is this amazing pachyderm and the plight it faces in the forests of Sumatra. If you find my content helpful in any way, I encourage you to hit the like button so that YouTube can bring this video to others. Let's start with the zoo in the modern era. As we know, there's a lot of controversy that can be debated on the spectacle that is the old world zoo. Harvesting of species and unsustainable living conditions were many of the old ways, but zoos today play such an important role in the education and habitation of species. Of course, not all zoos are created equal, and some zoos do play in a net negative practice, such as zoos in developing nations. Zoos in thriving nations usually have a practical set of rules and regulations that cover everything from diet to minimal enclosure needs to husbandry, which are the breeding practices to help in the propagation of species. This being the case, zoos are not actively sending expeditions to harvest animals, but rather sending expeditions to restock populations. They help in the rebounding of habitat and document trends of recovery. Zoos are often today part of a worldwide collective that can take in animals that have been abused or abandoned and provide them with a long, healthy life rather than have them meet a timely demise. This coin today highlights the Royal Australian Zoo, which is located in Queensland, Australia, and is the home base of one of my childhood heroes, Steve Irwin. The Irwin family is still super involved in the zoo's outreach, and this place is on my list of things to do if I visit Australia. In fact, it is probably at the top of that list, as it would be a safe way to visit the native fauna of Australia, most of which can kill you. Mr. Irwin is one of my heroes, and if you have a chance, I encourage you to visit this place. If you have visited, I hope you would comment below your experience. You know what? Why don't every one of you comment your favorite zoo experience below? I've always been fascinated with zoos, and I would love to know what your favorite thing to do at a zoo would be. Now let's dive into the Sumatran Elephant, which is on display at the Royal Australian Zoo. You can see here on their website a strong familiarity with the elephants featured on this coin. This is good news, as a correct species is depicted. We have seen in other examples times where the wrong species was displayed, so great job Mint Master in making sure the species was right. It also states on the website that these elephants have hundreds of acres to roam, which is amazing seeing as many of the species in the wild are relegated to much less. Disclaimer: I am not an activist, but some things we are about to get into correlate with the species at hand and therefore are worth discussing. Speaking of that, let's take a look at Sumatra, where these elephants call home. For that, we travel to Indonesia. This island in Indonesia is the only place where you can find megafauna like rhinos, tigers, bears, orangutans, and elephants cohabitating. The Sumatran elephant is the most endangered species of elephant, as the numbers are estimated to be in the range of 2.4 thousand, which reside in 25 fragmented herds. The biggest thing leading to the population loss is deforestation, though not in the way you might think. Logging is a big part of the problem in my research, but it is what often comes after the logging that disrupts the corridors that the elephants need to travel, and that is the planting of palm tree orchards for palm oil. This is not the first time we've run across palm oil being an issue. If you remember my video over the bird of paradise from New Guinea, you would recall a similar fate leading to countless ecological issues. In Sumatra, it is estimated that over the past 20 years, half of all rainforests have been lost to the logging and palm industry. You may also ask, well, how much is half of the rainforest? In 2015, 62,000 square miles were cleared for palm industry, which is 4 times the size of the nation of Switzerland. I am not a climate activist by any means, but I do understand ecosystems in zoology enough to know when things have crossed a line. Indonesia meets half of the world's demand for palm products. Recently in Indonesia, 10,000 miles were scorched to prepare for more plantations, creating an estimated 2 billion tons of greenhouse gases. When we take a look at this chart displaying where all nations' greenhouse gas emissions go, we see where Indonesia lands. This means that Indonesia, very, very small country, is putting out more pollution than very large and industrial countries like Mexico, Egypt, Canada, and Brazil, and is literally tied with one of the biggest oil-producing countries in the world, which is Iran. In fact, in deeper investigation, I found a government-backed project for a hydroelectric dam in the biggest Sumatran Elephant corridor. The government is willing to issue the project to a company called Prosperity Resources out of China, who is willing to build schools, a hospital, and concrete housing for a village of 75 if it's willing to move. These 75 are farmers and far removed from education or healthcare, so we can kind of see where this is going. The palm industry and this particular construction project are what many experts believe to be the 2 final chapters in the Book of Sumatran Elephants. This is a sad reality. By the way, if you find yourself bored and are now anti-palm industry, here's a list of ways people often disguise palm oil as an ingredient. Now, let's place this coin on our 60-point scale. When we look at the obverse, we are met with what has become a relic of the past, a classic depiction of Her Late Majesty gazing east. We know that her passing means a new face should adorn this series in the future. It is a rather boring layout, and there is nothing fancy here. The text and layout are exactly like the cheetah coin from this series, and thus score the same out of 5. It's a very basic queen-centered coin. The reverse is where we turn to now, and where we see an amazing depiction of the Sumatran elephant herd from the Royal Australian Zoo gazing out into the pasture which is their paddock. I assume these are all females, depicted as the zoo claims to have females. We have a standard block font which I find to be in perfect balance with the image, and the 2 particular things I love are the way they have shrunk down the ounce in purity, and the way the back of the center left elephant just rises over the letter L. That little touch brings depth into the field and should be worth a gift basket to the designer, who was also courteous enough to provide even more perspective by having a faint tree line to break up the foreground from the background. This is a fantastic side and scores a 9. Now we get to mintage. This coin has a very low mintage at 10,000, which is fantastic and is something to consider every year when a new coin is released from this series. Mintage, therefore, scores an 8. Cultural significance is an interesting topic. Sumatra is not in Australia. These elephants are not native to Australia, but this coin is not highlighting elephants in Sumatra, but rather elephants in a zoo in Australia. Zoos are part of the cultural landscape of many developed nations, just like museums and art exhibits. Often, the cultural experiences one can have in a city is the indicator of the development of the city itself. Zoos are a part of cultural fabric, as often they are mainstays for local fauna while highlighting animals from other areas of the world as well. This being said, there are elephants from an Australian zoo in a series made to do the exact thing zoos are supposed to do, which is to bring awareness, education, and love of our world and its animals to the masses. This coin hits on all cylinders, therefore it scores a 9, which brings us to collectability. This is an Australian silver coin. We are already in the highly collectible category just with that. It has a low mintage and a changing theme. We cannot claim it is equal to the level of a kookaburra, but it holds its own at an 8, which brings us to our last area, uniqueness. I have seen many types of elephant coins on the market, but most are the African elephant or Asian elephant. The low mintage and changing theme also means that each year there will be less and less of these in the marketplace, which all lead to a perfect 10 for uniqueness. This brings us to our final score and thoughts. The herd marches to a 49 out of 60, just 1 point from the elite status. the only thing really keeping it from a higher echelon being the boring obverse. A small move to tie the reverse to the obverse is all that would be required. All in all, I think this is a fantastic coin that tells a story we should all understand so that we are informed about the various industries of the world and how they affect our own lives. I hope you enjoyed this video and hope you remember to stay classy and current with the culture of currency.